I think we were named Donut Dollies as slang because in World War II, Red Cross girls gave out donuts and coffee to the troops. And so Donut Dollies, they had a name for us, supplemental recreational activities overseas, SRAO. So my sister was in the Red Cross and I just followed in her footsteps. She went in 1960 at 21. I went in 1970 to Vietnam at 23. Most of the girls were 21, but I was 23. I'm Pam Pearson from Athens, Georgia, and I graduated from Huntingdon College in 1970, June. And I had practice taught that spring. My sister had been in the Red Cross 10 years before, and she was 9 years older than me, and she had adventures. She went to Korea, France, and back to Korea. Well, in 1970, I wanted to do something, but it wasn't teaching in a school. So I sent in my application to the Red Cross, and since my sister was well liked, it paved the way for me. And I didn't even have to have an interview, where a lot of girls had to interview. I didn't have to. You had to be 23, you had to be over 21, a college graduate, and you could talk to a rock and it could talk back to you. And I've always been able to do that. I don't know why. I think I got it from my father. I went to Vietnam in November of 70. We only had 2 weeks of training, and most of that training was what we were supposed to do and how we were supposed to act and what our job was. The main job was to, I think, boost morale of the soldiers in a sisterly, friendly, comedian, happy type way, wholesome. Well, you could communicate with everybody, and we're not intimidated by a group of guys. Well, my father ran a boys' camp. I grew up with boys and men, and I found it was comfortable, so it was easy for me. Vietnam, my first remembrance of Vietnam was flying in to Tan Son Nhut Airport in Saigon. They opened the doors, I stepped out, and the smell overtook me. Yes. We stayed in Saigon, the little group of us, and then they gave us our assignments. And I was assigned to Phuc Vinh with the 1st Air Cav in Phuc Vinh. There were already 5 girls there, and one girl was rotating out and I was rotating in. We flew in helicopters every morning out to fire bases, which is where groups of men were that had a perimeter around it. It was very rustic, it was dirty, it was wonderful. And we got out of the helicopter with these big bags that had our props, and we would go to where talk was, where communication, and ask who we could see. And we saw soldiers who had just come in from the jungle for about 45 minutes, and they saw us sitting on their rucksacks, sitting on their sandbags, watching us put on these silly programs that was like concentration, and I can think of the name of it, and they still play it today, but I can't think of it.
Hollywood Squares.
Not kind of Hollywood Squares, but usually the basis of the program, which we had written and had tried out on the intelligence group, would appeal to 18-year-olds and 45-year-olds. We divide them into teams. It was very casual, but we could communicate We did not sing and dance, though I might have done the buck dance a little bit once or twice for fun when there were Georgia boys there. And we communicated, they watched us, they competed with each other, them not knowing that we had hard questions, medium questions, and really easy ones, and we kept the score even. And it was a way they could communicate with us. And after we did that, the best part is guys would come up and say, here, I want to show you a picture of my new baby. My wife sent it to me. This is my wife. This is my mom. And then we had guys that would have received a Dear John letter. And we listened. And we commiserated. And then we would go to another group, like the 105s, the 155s, the grunts. One time with a girlfriend of mine, Judy, she was from Virginia and I was from Georgia. And I'd say, hi, I'm Pam from Georgia. And I've been in country. It was real important to say how long you had been there. 3 months and 5 days and 20 hours. And she'd say how long she had been there. She had frizzy hair and had put it in pigtails that stuck out. And we were playing a children's game where they had to guess the songs, like we'd sing, brusha, 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 and their teams would sing out, with the new Ipana, or questions, for example, what was the name of the princess on Howdy Doody Time? And somebody would yell out, Princess Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring. That's right. And we would, with grease pencils and markers, we would keep score. It was a way for them to see our eyes. We didn't wear sunglasses. We faced the sun. The sun was always behind them. And sweat dripping down our legs and down our arms and down our faces. Zits. I had parted hair, long, and pigtails. And we were just the girls next door for a little while. We were Toby Fields. And then we would serve chow in the afternoon till about 3:30, and a helicopter would come and pick us up, and we would fly back to base with the doors open, trying to stay awake because we were so exhausted. And we had smiled till our mouths hurt, but we kept smiling till we got in our hooch. And we did that every day for 365 days. We got off 2 weeks for recreation, R&R, and I went to Hong Kong, and I went to Taiwan the second time. We got 2 vacations. Most of the guys were really young, innocent, and vulnerable. One of the good things that we could do as Red Cross girls, we could talk our way almost into anything. We could talk our way into a helicopter. We could talk our way into the officer's mess. And often a colonel would say, how are my men out on fire base, whatever? And I'd say, well, their boots are rotting and their pants are rotting off of them and they need some backup equipment. Oh, really? Yeah. Where their officers had not told them what these guys needed. Whatever. Judy and I were playing this game, and the winner, the guy who answered the question first, got to come up and throw an M&M up in the air and catch it with his mouth. Well, this guy got the answer. He came up, and the M&M broke his only tooth in his head. Oh, it was awful. But you're to have guys sitting there with the M16s trying to match states with the capitals. Or what is this board? And we'd have Rolling Stones we'd drawn with magic markers and hold it up, and they'd yell out, Rolling Stones, or songs like, We Gotta Get Out of This Place, or Homeward Bound. when we go back at night to our hooches, and we had concertina wire around our trailers, our Quonset huts, we put together these programs ourselves, which took a couple of weeks to get one completely done that other girls could take out. And mostly they were on sports, on countries, on states, on TV, hockey teams, any kind of sports teams, and music. It was anything except the war and what they were doing. I've seen girls, Red Cross girls, just sit with a guy, he won't speak, and pretty soon he's talking to her. We pass out short timers calendars with peace signs, and they mark each day as they get closer and closer to going home. One time, a guy told me he needed some lens for his camera, and I just happened to go to Taiwan, and I came back and I had gotten him a lens. When I flew back to that fire base, he wasn't there, he was dead. So I just gave the lens to somebody else. We didn't have iPhones and beepers and any of that stuff. I heard for the first time Jesus Christ Superstar on a cassette and a little player. It's the best experience of my whole life, and it's also the hardest. I think we were named Donut Dollies as slang because in World War II, Red Cross girls gave out donuts and coffee to the troops. And so Donut Dollies, they had a name for us, supplemental recreational activities overseas, SRAO. So my sister was in the Red Cross, and I just followed in her footsteps. She went in 1960 at 21. I went in 1970 to Vietnam at 23. Most of the girls were 21, but I was 23. Red Cross is a big organization, but when it came to Donut Dollies, over the time span, I'll have to look, but I think there were about 600 of us in Vietnam. But at the same time, there were girls trained with us as well for 2 weeks in Washington, going to Korea. So they had girls in Korea and Vietnam. And the same requirements, single, over 21, and could talk. We wore these blue dresses, light blue, and they were about to the knee in 1970. By November of 71, we wore shorter dresses or culottes with a zippered front, and a collar like this. One time, a helicopter landed at a fire base, and another gal and I, we had done programming to all these groups of guys, so we were just sitting there talking. Helicopter landed, and these girls got out in go-go boots, and they had been brought in by, I think, another group. They came in, and we were sitting there, and I remember the helicopters would kick up all this dust, and sweat was going down my leg, and I could just see the messes it was making. And a gal came up to me, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And one of the guys says, "These are our Donut Dollies, and they come visit us once a month." It just made me feel so good. And we were there for them. A lot of gals on their off days would go to orphanages. They would go to the hospitals. Some girls were in more populated bases like Da Nang or Cu Chi, and they ran a center, and the guys would come to the center, and they had pool tables and games and popcorn and Kool-Aid and talk to the Red Cross girls. But I like going forward, and I got to do that the whole year.
Have you ever met any of the men that you saw in Vietnam after Vietnam?
Yes, but I did not recognize them. But they knew me, or someone like me. It's surreal. And in Angel Fire, I took some of my stuff to the museum that they were building around the Vietnam War, and they wanted it. And I took a girlfriend of mine to take some stuff, and as I was telling her about Vietnam in the museum, a woman came and stood kind of behind me, and I didn't see her. Well, after I told Pam Gary, and I'm Pam Pearson, about it, she said, "My husband's here and he's back in the gift shop. I'd like for you to meet him." And he came out. She said, "This," I can't remember his name at the moment. I have it because we've corresponded, is a Donut Dolly. And he wrapped his arms around me and just hugged and hugged. And we went out to the helicopter that's out there, and it's in an angle like it's flying, as if it is flying. And I told him where we sat. And I married a pilot I met in Vietnam, an Air Force pilot. He flew OV-10s. And when I came home, he met me. He came home earlier than I did. And I lived with him for 3 years, and then we got married. And we separated 7 years later and divorced. He never really came home from Vietnam. Yeah. But we ran an airport, which was exciting. I think my experience in Vietnam, when I got home and walked into my bedroom, nothing had changed. Same bed, same everything. But I had changed so much, I could hardly talk. I did not put it on my resume for 10 years. Because oftentimes, because of such dissension and such animosity toward the war, I didn't know how I would be received. Not till, I think it was 1980, and that we had a reunion of Red Cross girls in New York, and we learned that they were gonna bury the unknown soldier and bring him down the steps of the Capitol, and he's pulled by a caisson, a horse with the boots reversed. We decided to go, about 10 of us, I think. And Dorner and I were there that morning, and there were guys with pieces of uniform. There was a caisson, and then there were officials in their big black cars. And all of a sudden, all these veterans just swarmed up and started walking behind them. And we walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, and people clapped and saluted and said, "Thank you." And we walked to the wall, and I was looking at it, and the guy turned around with a red beard. To this day, I don't know who he was, and said, "Welcome home," and gave me a hug. And I've been home. After that, I began to give talks to a girls group I was a part of. Then a Kiwanis Club asked me to talk about it, and I started showing slides and telling what it was like before I went, what it was like there, and then when I got home. And this was 10 years later I was doing this, and 12 years later. After every talk and showing slides, someone would come up, a wife or a sister and say, thank you so much. I didn't understand what my brother went through. But the main thing I wanted those people to know is that their sons and husbands and uncles were not alone. We were there together. It's not as if they were standing on the mountain by themselves. There were the rest of us, and we were all trying to get through till we could go home. Because there was not, I never really understood, because they would capture the same place they had captured weeks before. It was an oxymoron every day, in every way. And I'm so glad I did it. But I would not want a child of mine to do that. Well, Donut and I stayed in touch, and she's my oldest friend because she came into Vietnam I think I got there November, December, January. She came in January. And I was in Bien Hoa with the first calf. It was a little more, they had real roads with asphalt, not dirt. And we were in a Quonset hut that had hot showers. And we even had a living room. And it was more civilized. But she and I clicked, and we would program together out at the fire bases, and we looked a lot alike, and we had the same Southern accent, and we played off of each other. And but Dorner and Judy and Lindy, and I can see her, she ended up having a child and adopting 6 more. And she adopted Vietnamese children, Vietnamese American children. And she went back to Vietnam after the war to help in an orphanage. We got together. I had them all come to Ute Park where I live. My husband was the greatest cook. And we just have been together for some reunions, 1 or 2 of us or 3 of us. Dorna was just here 3 weeks ago, here. And she'd come visit me in Ute Park. We're tight. And we've known each other longer and more than some of our husbands and some of our children. My sister Kinley and I never really talked. You can't really teach in 2 weeks what it's like. You have to learn it on your own, and you have to depend on each other. And we did. I started my period at one of the fire bases. My mother sent my sanitary supplies. I didn't know what to do. So I looked for a guy that had a wedding ring on, and went up and asked him if he was married. Yes. Do you have any children? I've got girls. Do you know what it's like when they start their period? Oh yeah. Well, that's happened to me right now. And he loaned me a shirt, and I have a picture of me with it, serving chow with it wrapped. I just tied it around me. And we went to the bathroom out on the fireplaces where they went to the bathroom. But they'd build us a latrine type place, and then they'd have the chaplain come hold the poncho up so we could go to the bathroom. I mean, it was wonderful and magnificent and horrible all at the same time. Only those that have been tested together. Yes, we had incoming, and they had a place for us to go run and go down into the bunker, which was usually had spiders and water in it, and we would play truth or dare, us girls. It didn't happen often, and hopefully you'll speak to some girls when they had to get under their hooches. It's interesting, when I got back, I loved to watch MASH because it was the closest thing to what it was like for us. And MASH caught the camaraderie and the humor that was not proper, and it's the way we were then.
It's like a survival technique.
Yes, we all did. But I think the horror of it, it was really hard to share with those that didn't know. And I asked, my mother and daddy never knew really what it was like. They were innocents, and so were we. And but that's who we used to fight wars, because we're brave and stupid, and and we follow the leader, and that's what we did. And some survived, and over 58,000 did not. I had Arnie, and he was in California, and we had talked. But my daddy he died. I got home in November, and he died July the 2nd of 72. So I became immersed in that. But I applied for the Red Cross to do service to military hospitals in Mayport. And I worked there for 3 months. Arnie came to meet me, and then I left the Red Cross, and we went to run an airport in Douglas, Georgia, and then in Fitzgerald, Georgia. And I helped run that airport. I liked living on the edge. We jumped out of airplanes. We flew a J3 Cub and did loops and spins, and I like the excitement, and I'm still kind of that way. I mean, I'm the first one to jump in. My husband and I became EMTs in our 60s, and first responders, and then basic, and I've always liked adventure. I haven't been all over the world, but I've been to China and with my mother, and for 3 weeks, taking trips. I'm 74 now, and I expect another good 20 years. Those people here draw the good in me out, and not the bad. They draw that. I never wanted to live in a place like this. I thought it would be awful. Every one of these people has an amazing backstory. There's a couple that was with the Red Cross for 30 years, but she was not a Donut Dolly or service to military hospitals overseas, military overseas. But I talked to her, she's in her 90s, and we get together. She told me about 9/11, and she's an administrator for this area, and at 70 years old, she and a group of Red Cross flew in one of the few airplanes that were flying after 9/11 to go to that site and work it for 3 weeks, I think. And she was 70 years old. And just yesterday, I went to the memorial service at Fort Benning. There were 8 of us that went in the Legacy van, and there were 2 with walkers, so they had a golf cart to take us to the parade ground, and there were a lot of people there and a lot of families that were laying pavers down. It was lovely. However, they did not have a guest speaker because the one they had was in the hospital, so it was short and sweet. But we've been invited by a group of helicopter pilots, and 6 of us went and met with them in Branson, Missouri, and they played for our rooms. and we did a program for them and their wives and their spouses and friends to show them what we do, and it was wonderful. I really did not know how much we were appreciated, and I've had reactions from some men that say, Donut Dollies, I bet I know what you did. And just to have one or two people say something like that will almost stop, in the beginning, stop me dead in my tracks. I didn't know what to say, and that's why I didn't put it on my resume. And that's why I would only start telling that group of friends that I was in a business women's group with, because I knew I was safe and I could talk it. In the beginning, after every talk, I might be in tears, but now I'm stronger and can shut it down a little bit so I can tell the story. I never knew any girl or woman that did that. I met nurses, I met special service women. I never knew any. There was a program, China Beach, that went out, that was on TV for a while, and they had a Red Cross girl. Ricky Lake played her part, and they had a nurse and some others, but they had a woman that belonged to an officer, kinda. If that happened, now all of us usually had one guy. My guy was Arnie, and he was from California, and he had white hair, and he was 30, and I was 23 and innocent as I could be. I met him at a PX, and the PX was this giant store, like a Publix, and it had peaches, and it had shampoos and coffee. And I was just looking at all this because I hadn't seen it in 3 months. And he came up and talked to me. The next day, I went out to a fireplace, and he flew over my fireplace I was on and did aerobatics. So he had me hook, line, and sinker. Yeah.
Did he know you were watching?
He knew I was on that fire base, and I knew what he was flying, so it was an OV-10. And I didn't say a word, not to any soldier. I don't know if I said anything to the Donut Dolly, but, you know, if you have a man do aerobatics over a fire base, and yeah, that's pretty much, and you're an innocent from Huntington College in Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah. Arnie Sims.
And so he's a gentleman you did marry for about 7 years, or?
Well, we lived together.
Right,
and
lived together for 3, then
yeah,
married,
about 10 years.
10 years in total.
And then I went into graduate school, and I met another pilot, Bill Koch, and I was married to him for 23 years. And then at 53, I moved in with Bill Norris in New Mexico, and after I had had cancer, he asked me to marry him, and I did. And we had 17 good years till he died of a heart attack. 4 years ago is the most recent, and we did a lot adventure-wise. We scuba, we kayaked, we skied. I became a ski instructor. It was fantastic. But with him, he was a shooting star, and I just held on. I was the tail end of that comet, C-O-M-E-T, the comet. It was great. So only now did I have the strength to move here, sell my house in Ute Park, and have a contract on it, and because it's isolated, it's alone, and I'm a people person. But I've only been here January, February, March, April, May, 5 months. I've told some about Vietnam because something will cue it, and there'll be 3 or 4 women, and then I'll talk about it. But if somebody says, tell me about Vietnam, and I don't know, it has to come from me. I have to be able to instigate it. And Rose, who you met, she was a minister, and I go to her Bible study that we have on Thursday afternoons. I mean, my faith has become stronger in my agery. And I was a Presbyterian, but in my 20s and 30s, not so much.
How about when you were in Vietnam? Did you think about it, or were you just...
I had problems. I had a problem connecting to home. And I got where I didn't write letters to my parents, and they had to contact the Red Cross and say, she's not writing, is she okay? Because I'm one for living in the moment. And I would not think about home because it's too painful. So I just didn't. When I was at camp, at my daddy's boys' camp, I went to a girls' camp. I was at camp. I didn't ever wish I was anywhere else. I lived there. So when Bill died, it was probably the biggest shock ever. And it wasn't supposed to happen that way. I was supposed to go first.
According to you?
According to me, yes. And he was a karate instructor in his 50s, 60s, and 70s as a sideline. So he was in really good shape, and so was I. It was a real slap, a knockdown pow. Yeah. I wish that they would hear us and listen to their elders. Hear what they have to say, look at their pictures, and learn from it. I went to Vietnam because I wanted adventure. I didn't want to cure the world. I just knew it would be exciting. Boy, did I bite off a lot. But I don't regret doing it. Do you remember Foxfire?
Foxfire?
It's a book that was written, there are 3 of them, and they're written by students up in Rabun County, Georgia, up in the mountains. And the students interviewed all these mountain folk and wrote a book. It's magnificent because they have pictures and quote them, and they interviewed them. But there's books. But I asked my mother, she died at 98, and she had all her faculties. And when she was in her 80s, I asked her about these wars that we keep having. And she said, Pam, it'll never change as long as, and I believe her. Because how many true wars have we won since Korea or World War II? What is it? What do we gain? I mean, we throw money at Ukraine, but we don't go, where do we draw a line? I think every person, like Israel, every person, man or woman, ought to do 2 years of military service regardless. And you can't get out of it because you have money, or your daddy's a senator, or you're in college. You do it.
Yeah, I mean, right now, my understanding, I keep hearing the same stat, is 1% of our population is in the military. 1% is basically serving and protecting.
And they are volunteers. And in Vietnam, they were recruited out of high school. They were young'uns. We even had 2 that died, 16 years old, that lied about their age and died over there. I mean, all of us had to be college grads, I think, because we could pull information together, and also we could talk and understand where people are coming from. If we had been just out of high school, we'd be too innocent, not innocent, ignorant, I think.
Or a little bit of both.
Yeah, but I think our innocence over there protected us. I never was approached for something that I didn't want to do. I never was cussed. I never was spit on. Nobody. We were protected and cared for like sisters and like cousins that you loved. I never.
I love that, and that also shows the caliber of the soldiers. I mean, they've been portrayed as these barbaric and all these awful things, and yet here you're saying, no, I was in country with them. They were gentlemen. They showed me their children's, pictures of their babies.
Oh yeah, yeah. And told me there was a guy that didn't watch us do a program, but they were all a bunch of guys. There was a guy that was sitting over there by himself. So after we programmed and short time calendars, I walked over to him, and he was looking out over. We were at a carved off. The mountain had been carved off, and that's where the fire base sat. So you could see other mountains, and I went up to him and asked him where he was from, and he said Kansas. I said, they grow corn in Kansas, don't they? Yeah. I don't remember the rest of the conversation, but he had gotten a Dear John letter, and he stuck out on this fire base. You can't bathe unless they put a bucket with holes in it. And he got a Dear John letter. So I could do just sit there quietly and just talk about Kansas. It took me a long time to realize that I really did make a difference and accept the thank yous.
Almost every single one of the veterans I've spoken to have talked about the Donut Dollies and how you did boost morale and how you were wonderful. And some of them said, never saw one, but I heard about them. I always wanted to see them. So even the legend of the Donut Dollies helped them.
One of the things that I realized there is that we could go out on the fire bases, but at night we were invited with invitations to come to somebody's leaving, like a colonel or a general or a major, and the new guy coming in. Well, we had opportunity to not wear our uniforms and dress really nicely and wash our hair and put on some makeup and talk to them and tell them how their troops were. And the Bradley tank was named for General Bradley. He cared about his troops, and he asked Red Cross girls, how's it going out there? Because he could get the truth, because we were attached to the military, and they gave us a place to live. We ate in their places. We ate out on the fire bases. As the skinniest I've ever been. But we really, one of our bosses came out to Camp Eagle, and she came in, and it happened to be a stand down day when they don't do anything and they count everybody and to see who's there. And we had to stay in our hooch, and she was upset that we weren't out. And she asked where she could get her hair done at the beauty parlor. She came from Saigon. She was in her 40s. Of course, we thought she was ancient. And get your hair done? You want a hot shower? You get it between this time and this time. You can get a hot shower, but you won't have it. I mean, there was a huge disconnect between what happened over there and what happened here on the ground level. They used to say, at the end of every news service how many people were killed in Vietnam that day. And then you turn off the TV. I'm glad I went. And they have Red Cross they had Red Cross in Afghanistan, I think, in Iraq. But they didn't have Donut Dollies. It's a different kind of war. I like flying out in helicopters and landing on a fire base. And we had girls that did not like that, and they liked being, quote, in the rear. And their clothes were clean, and they didn't have sweat stains under their armpits and pentaprime, which is that tar stuff, on their dresses. But that became a point of pride for those of us who went forward. And I have a uniform here, but I don't know where. It's in one of my bags in there. It is just a little dress. And interesting, a lot of the gals, and the ones I've known, have gone on to do other things. I mean, I taught school when I got back. I ran an area health education center. I ran a wellness center. I mean, we contributed, still doing that. One, Dorner sold her home after her kids had grown and bought a camper and a truck, and she goes to national parks as a volunteer, and she gets to leave her camper there, and she's a volunteer there. She's gone to Arizona to...
What does she do for them?
She's been a tour guide. She's been a person that says you've got to turn off your generator, or your dogs barked all day you were gone. I don't know what that is. We joke and say she's a junior ranger, but she's a volunteer, and I think she might have clicked people in and out. Right now, she was at Georgia's Jimmy Carter's National Park, and she's in charge of the donkeys and the chickens and some ducks, which is just fine for her. I didn't know what PTSD was until New York, and that was 1980, I think. I'd never heard of it. And some girls, I think, suffered from that. But most of us went ahead and had kids and raised families and did good deeds and
definitely contributed. You contributed there immensely, and you're still contributing.
Thank you.
Yeah. A life well lived. And
It
a lot
is.
of fun. A lot of adventure in your life. I can see this.
I would like more. And I have making friends here, and with COVID, it really puts a squash it on it. But I see trips, cruises, single people going on. I'd like to go to Ireland. I'd like to go to England. Yeah, but not, it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. Not like that, but go.
Right, right.
And I have friends outside of Red Cross. A gal who ran a AIDS agency in Pensacola, Florida. She's 77 now. My best friend in the 90s is a counselor. She's 85 day before yesterday. And but all of us have given back. My mother went back to college in her 50s and became a high school teacher at 55 and taught till they forced her to retire at 70. And my dad ran a YMCA, so that's what I know. Having fun is what I know, and getting other people, kids and grown-ups and soldiers, happy and playing fun is what I know. I've never said that before.
That's a gift.
I think it came from my daddy. The only reason I say that is that Mother told Dorner a story about me that she can tell you. I'm not gonna. And Dorner said, where did she get that from? And my mother said, from her father. So Dorner's dad sold insurance, but he was on the board of a bank, and mother was a Southern belle like my mother. I mean, when Daddy died, her daddy became my daddy, and her family became my family too. I'd like to hear what some of the soldiers have said in your interviews. I'm really curious of what they say of their experiences. Born on the 4th of July, the entrance, I saw it in a theater, was a helicopter, whap, 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 coming through a few clouds down to a fire base, which just is all round and you can see everything in there. It was something. I mean, I was thrown back there. I'll never forget the smell on a fire base. What they did with pee and shit was burn it with helicopter fuel, and it has a distinct odor. So even it took a while for when I'd hear a helicopter, my heart would go to that, and loud noises I'd jump, but I respond to helicopters because I look for them, for Hueys and Cobras, and those were the gunships, and the little loaches where 2 of you could go. We had a lot of adventure, us girls, yeah.
You did.
But I didn't know it was so special until later. Because we all did it, I thought it was pretty common.
And probably now you're finding out even how incredibly special it is, because now more are opening up and talking and
I'm glad you came.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad Susan called.
Yeah, me too. And the whole way it all transpired, which is so serendipitous or not, maybe divine, actually.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, she was a donut dolly. I'm like, you're kidding me. I said, you know how long I've been looking for a donut dolly?
How long have you been looking?
Oh, for easily 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, to be connected one. And I don't want to just reach out, because then it's, it's cold and they're, you're
You
all
won't get the
guarded.
story.
Right. And sorry?
You don't get the story. You don't get the.
Or I just don't want them to. I want them to understand who I am, so
Yeah.
they trust me. So I don't want to just, be like a vulture.
You were great
so
today.
I said, God has his fingerprints over this entire project. It will happen. It will happen. And so the way I pace myself is very slow. I'll just keep moving forward. I keep doing the right thing for the right reason, and eventually all these
It'll
things
come together.
It all comes together. And so when she's a donut doll, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Yes, please reach out to her. So that's why she called her right away. We called you right away. And
I don't know why I even told her. I don't have anything in the living room, in the house that you would know that's what it is.
Maybe because you knew she was trying to get more into the veteran community, and then you.
Yeah, I think maybe that, and she was just so open. To find you are like me, she's like me, you see that in each other, and not threatened. Yes, and we're not threatened but I'm protective of myself, in that I don't want to be hurt.
Right. Yeah. Well, I loved everything you had to share, so much more even than I expected, so thank you so much.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing, and even just the way you phrase things, I love. So this was great. The guys are gonna love this. Wives are gonna love this.
Good.
You portrayed them how they were, and
Well,
not
when
how Hollywood portrays them. And
They weren't alone, and we were there together, but helping each other, we didn't come across flirting. We came across as a friend, but female. And if that helped them get home, survive another day, not become suicidal, not do something terrible, then it was definitely worth it. And